Number one, your last assignment. Assignment, is it 6? 6. So there are two parts, A and B. A is trying to get the parity working where you're just looking at the last output. Okay, you have the sequence of length 50, you look at the last output, you try and train. You try and train, okay? I was unable to get it to train because I was not patient enough. Someone I looked at has actually turned it in and ran hundreds of epochs and managed to train it. So this one, try. But show what you've done. B, so this is the last output. And B is all outputs. So you're comparing y hat against y hat 1, y2 against y2 hat, y3 against y3 hat, and so on. And you find it trains much, much quicker. So make sure you can, so A is try, B is do. Document both of them. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, and now for something completely different. So, optimize your engineering and financial life. This is, how many of you are seniors? All right, so almost half of you guys. All right. So some of it is more relevant to you guys immediately, but the other stuff will be relevant. So, two basic themes here. Optimize your financial life. That is all about basically money, and money in particular for people who are in an engineering career where they make a lot of money, often. So, and then optimizing your engineering life that is doing well in that engineering career. Okay, maybe you should do the first one, the second one first, so that you do well, so that you actually do make money. I'm not sure, but in any case. I want to introduce the idea of financial independence. So financial independence is the situation you're in where your passive income exceeds your expenses. Okay, passive income being like dividends from stocks, capital appreciation, rent, if you are, let's say, have, I don't know, rental properties or something like that, royalties, things like that, all right? Investments of one sort or another sort. It's often called FU money. Never can quite figure out what the FU stands for. But why would one want this? Options, okay? This gives you options. For example, you can, I had a friend who took a year off to go drive around the US with his kids. There are sometimes situations where you just can't stand your work environment or your boss. And it's certainly nice if you don't have the pressure of having to meet this month's rent affecting your decision making. You may be sometimes asked to do unethical things in a job, and you have the freedom to say no. You could work part-time. So when I was at Google the last 9 months, I guess, I was working 3/5 time. So basically I went in 3 days a week instead of 5 days a week. That 4-day weekend actually turns out to be really nice. You work for a startup, work for a nonprofit, work for a startup, start a startup, right? If you have money in the bank and can afford to basically pay all your bills, you have a long runway. You can run, developing software yourself. You could teach at a small science and engineering private college in Claremont, California, right? So I took a large pay cut from, let's say, working at Google to working at here, like 90%. But those are all things that financial independence gets you. So well, here's a question. You got a bunch of money. You got, let's say, $1 million. How much can you withdraw of that $1 million each year in order to make it last you, let's not say the rest of your life, let's say 30 years, okay? Could we just take $1 million divided by 30? Does that make sense? That's a lower bound, right? You can at least do $1 million divided by 30, which is what? Do I have the numbers right? Sorry, 30,000? Okay. But what are we missing out there? What are we not counting? Yeah, interest, appreciation of some sort, right? So we're not going to, if you put it under your mattress You could take out $30,000 a year for 30 years. But you're not going to put it in your mattress. You're going to invest it in some way. And so looking at kind of stock and bond type investments over the last 100 years, about 4% a year, inflation adjusted. So take 4% of, let's say, $1 million, which is 40,000, and say, okay, I get 40,000 the first year, and then I can keep going and adjust that for inflation. And there are very, very few cases where I would actually run out of that money before the 30 years. So that's a good kind of rule of thumb, 4%. So if your expenses are less than or equal to 40,000, then $1 million gives you enough money such that you are financially independent. Does that make sense? Okay. Or another way to put it, whatever you need, multiply by 25, and that's how much assets that you need. All right. Has anyone ever talked about financial independence to you? Are you familiar with it? Are you familiar with this concept? Like a few heads. In general, this is not the American way. Right? The American way is save as little as you must and work until you're, I don't know, work until when? 65. That's why that number? I don't know, but that's the number, right? I guess that's because when you get Social Security, or you used to get Social Security, so but you don't have to be committing to working that long. And if you're loving you're working much longer than that. That's it.
They set that number 65 and the average life expectancy was 64.
That's a good point. So, we got our total income, right? Here's what I'm going to tell you. The amount of money, the percentage of money you need to save is independent of your income. That is, how much do you need to save in order to get to be financially independent? Will 0% do? If you save none of your money, will you ever reach financial independence? No. What matters is your savings rate. And that's all that matters. It doesn't matter whether you make a lot of money or a little money. What matters is what proportion of that money you are saving. Let me explain. So you've got some assets. A house, a big hotel, stock, certificates. You have your safe withdrawal rate. That gives you your income. And the question is it more or less than your expenses? So your total income will break apart into the amount you're saving and the amount you're spending, right? And so you just need to make sure that the amount you can pull out each year is bigger than the amount you're spending. The key is, so let's look at 10% savings rate. This is what a lot of people say, save 10% of your income. And it's certainly a minimum. But let's see what happens. If you're making $100,000 a year and you save 10%, you're spending whatever's left, which is $90,000. Part of that is you're spending on taxes, for example, but that's part of your spending. So $90,000 a year. How much do you need in order to generate $90,000 a year? You need 90 times 25. That was that formula that I gave you. So that's 2.25 million. Okay? How long will it take to save 2.25 million? Well, assuming that you are investing $10,000 a year, it's going to take you about 39 years, assuming you have an 8% investment return along the way. Okay, so 39 years. You're starting at, how old are you? You're a senior? Give me a senior. How old? 21. So 39 years from now is 60. So you save 10%, and when you're 60, you're financially independent. Does that make sense? Okay. However, if you bump up your saving rate to 20%, of course, that doubles how much you're saving, right? But not only does it double how much you're saving, it reduces how much money you need, because you are now living on 80,000 and not 90,000. So you don't need 2.25 million, you need only 2 million to make enough money to match those expenses. Does that difference make sense? So it's like quadratic almost. So you bump your 39 years down to 29 years. So you will be now 50 instead of 60. Okay? Now, you can go extreme and say, well, if 10 is good, or 10 is okay, and 20 is better, What would happen if we started really bumping up those numbers? If you went to 100%, as soon as you say 100%, you're done, right? Because what are your expenses? 0, and therefore you don't need anything, right? You're already financially independent, but that is perhaps too extreme. But if we just look at some of the numbers, there are people who save 50 and 60 and 70% of their incomes, and you can see all of a sudden you become financially independent very quickly. Right? So, numbers worth thinking about. But it all depends on just your savings rate. It doesn't depend on the absolute numbers. It doesn't matter whether you're making $30,000 a year or $100,000 or $300,000. Now, it may be harder to set a particular savings rate based on the amount you're earning. But on the other hand, well. Does that make sense? Any questions? Okay. Tools. Don't accept the first job offer. The first job offer they give you, you're not intended to accept it. Okay? And my sister also had this. She is a principal at a private high school. And so she had someone come in, I think it was a physics major, and came in and applied for a teaching job. And they gave him an offer. They said, you know, I think it was $50,000. He said, $50,000? That's, oh my goodness, that's great. And she said, no. You do not say that. You know, she was playing sort of both sides, trying to help him out. So you do not be super excited about how much money that is. Okay? Instead, you negotiate. All right? They are giving you the minimum they can get away with. And, you know, this is your recruiter, and their job is to get you for as little as they can. And whatever number you start at affects your entire future trajectory, probably. Okay? Because things are based on those numbers. So you want a higher number. If someone offers you X amount of additional salary versus X amount of signing bonus, which do you prefer? Salary. You get that every year, right? The signing bonus is a one-off. Negotiate this one, and then go for the signing bonus too, right? If you've got 2 job offers, and one is giving you smaller base salary, but a larger signing bonus, then go to them and say, I've got a larger base salary at this other place. Can you increase the base salary? And go to the other folks and say, can you up the signing bonus, right? Because you want to make parity in every way, right? You want to maximize everything. The best situation you could be in is with multiple job offers, right? Because then there's, you know, the fear of missing out, right? Oh my goodness, they have 3 job offers. This candidate is even better than we thought. We certainly don't want to lose them. Ideally, you get into bidding war. Can I implement this? Well, no. But I'm saying for you guys, this is what you should do. Right? I find it hard. In fact, I'm embarrassed to say at Google that I accepted their first offer, and then it went up committee and goes up the executive committee, and they kicked it back and increased the rate. They came back to me and said, no, we were actually going to pay you more than we said. So. I do not. What has happened? So negotiate everything, but the one-off things are easiest to get, but have the least value to you. Okay, overall. And stock and option grants are great. So if you're at a startup where there actually is no public traded value, then don't count on those as much. But if you're going to, you know, Google or Facebook or something like that, then that's definitely real money, and it's worth thinking about. Here's my request of you. You are used to living like college students because you're college students. So continue to live like college students or slightly above college students. So make your conversion from, let's say, college student life to, I don't know what we call it, full-fledged, whatever. Don't make this a cliff, okay? I got my job, I'm going out, I'm getting my car, I'm getting my, own place. I am getting, I don't know, my own Netflix subscription as opposed to using my parents'. Forget that. Instead, you want a gradual rise over time. Okay? The gradual rise over time, you will actually enjoy more because of hedonic adaptation. This is the case basically where you get used to whatever you got. And so it's going to be so much more enjoyable. This will be a fun jump, I'll admit that. But all of a sudden, you're going to get used to that. And it's like, oh yeah, I'm used to all this stuff. Whereas opposed to here, you're always getting new stuff, right? Oh, I got my own Netflix subscription, and I got, I don't know what, all these things. So things like continue to have roommates. That saves it, right? Your largest expenses are going to be what? Okay, so rent.
Insurance. Mortgage.
Rent, let's say housing. Okay, so rent / housing. There are two other big ones. No.
Savings?
Sorry?
Savings, if you count that.
Yeah, let's not count that one.
Okay.
I'm going to say transportation is usually a pretty big one for most people. Although you guys don't spend a lot on transportation now, I bet. Right? Commuting costs. How bad are they for you guys? Zero. That's nice. Yes. Taxes are one of your biggest expenses. Now, just because they take it out of your paycheck doesn't mean you're not paying it. Okay? So I would say these are probably your three biggies. I'm going to talk to you about how you can address this. Transportation, live near where you work. And if you can bike or walk, that's probably good too, but live near where you work. Okay? And have roommates. You're used to having roommates. Continue to have roommates. It saves so much money. If you absolutely must buy a house and have roommates, right? It's called house hacking. Get enough roommates so you're living for free and they're paying your mortgage. That's a good deal. Okay. Another, if you get a raise, add some of it to your expenses, but save the rest. Okay? So you're still getting the benefit of it. You're still enjoying it, but you're just forcing some of it to go to savings. The rule of 72. Okay, so the rule of 72 gives a rule of how to understand interest rates. That is, if you've got an interest rate, by the way, if everyone doesn't have handouts, the handouts are over there. So basically it says if you got an interest rate, like let's say 9%, you take 72 divided by 9, and that tells you how many years, or how many time periods in this case, it will take to double your money. So if it's 9% a year, 72 divided by 9 says it's 8 years to double your money. If you go 8% is 9 years. 12%, 72 divided by 12 is 6, is only 6 years. 10% would be how many years? Yeah, 7.2. It's rough, it's not exact. It is interesting that this approximation occurred first in 1494. Okay. And it has to do with log base 2 gives us some number. Anyway, it doesn't matter why it works, it just works. This is really useful. So, let me give you a story. I just left grad school, I guess. And I heard about this stock. It was the most expensive stock on the stock exchange. Okay? It was $5,000 a share. And I read about this article in, I don't know, Fortune or Forbes or something. And it's this stock picker named Warren Buffett, right? How many people have not heard of Warren Buffett? Okay, so Warren Buffett. And he had a company called Berkshire Hathaway. And the stock was originally something like $10 or $100, and it never split, and it got to $5,000. And this was amazing, and wouldn't it have been great if you'd invested way back when and saved it, and you would have had all this money, okay? And I thought, that's really cool. I wish I had been there to do that. Okay? About 6 years later, 5 years later, I look again, and guess what? This is now $18,000 per share. And I said to myself, I guess if I had bought it then, I would now have more than triple my money. Is it too late? Maybe it's not. And so I bought a share. Okay? What's it worth now? Anyone know? Still hasn't split. It's like 330,000. Okay? Now let us look at what the effective interest rate of that, the effective investment rate was. So this was 25 years ago. Okay? So how many times has it doubled? Right? 330 divided by 18 is around what? 18.5? Is that right? So let's say, could we say 16, just to understate it? So that's how many doublings? Right? 4 doublings and 25 years. We rounded this down to 16. Let's just round this to 24 to make it sort of easy. So let's call it about 24 years. So therefore, if we had 4 doublings, that doubled every 6 years, right? So doubled every 6 years. So therefore, what was the rate of return? 12%. 12%, I don't know if that sounds like a lot to you guys or a little, well, given savings rates these days, or mortgage rates, that's pretty good. My first mortgage was like 10% that I had to pay. So 12% over 25 years turns out to be really nice, that long, long compounding. But that's an example of how the Rule of 72 can help you quickly and easily, if you're on a desert island, without a calculator, figure out interest rates and results and so on. Okay, tools, we're still in. YNAB. Anyone heard of YNAB? It stands for You Need a Budget. It is budgeting software. Okay. How many people have heard of Quicken? Okay, one person. Mint. Many people. So here's what Mint is good for. Mint is good for tracking what you've spent your money on. Right? You hook up your credit cards to it. It'll auto-categorize things, and you can, as I remember, do some categorizations of it. And you could say, I spent $300 last month on food and $150 on other stuff. I don't know. Okay? Here's the problem. That's really good for telling you what you did do, but it's not good for planning what you're going to do. And YNAB is ideally suited for planning what you can do. They have 4 basic rules. I'm not going to talk about them right now, but it's free for students. I would try it out. So you just need an EDU account to sign up for, get it for a year for free. So I recommend it. It helps. Plan what you're going to do with your money is really what it is. That's what budgeting is. Budgeting isn't trying to restrict you. It's trying to make you do what you want with your money. Best checking account. I have particular feelings about things. So the best checking account I think that exists is the Charles Schwab Bank. Okay, it's online. You have one?
Yeah, I got one when I was going abroad.
Okay.
There's no foreign transaction.
The no foreign transaction fees is really important on your debit card and free ATM. So this is free ATM everywhere, any ATM, even in Las Vegas, which has really expensive ATM fees. Okay, so at the end of every month, any ATM charges that other networks have charged you, they give you back. Okay. There's no minimums, there's no fees. You can deposit mobile, with your phone by taking a picture. It has bill pay. Yes, the interest rate's not very high, but it's not very high anywhere. They even have 2-factor authorization, which I think is important. especially the more money you get, it's more important. So you can, and this is not fake two-factor authorization by sending an SMS. This is an actual app you're running on your phone or an actual hardware token. Okay, and all these things are good. So, good checking account. I think the best credit card is a cashback credit card, and this is the simplest and easiest one. So there's no different categories or anything else. 2%. Every month, whatever you spend, they give you back 2%. What could be easier? It gets put into a brokerage account at Fidelity, but then I just transferred over my checking account. So, should you be using a credit card is a different story. Disadvantage of using credit cards? Yeah, one tends to spend more, even if one thinks one won't. So it is sometimes a lot harder to spend actual cash. Many of you probably don't even know how to spend cash. Insurance. Do you guys need life insurance? Why? Let's say you're working. As a student, you probably don't, but let's say you start working. So you go out there, you get your job, you're next year, you're a senior, so you're out working. Do you need life insurance?
Yeah.
For what?
I guess.
Okay. It actually only pays out once you're dead. So who will it pay to?
It's my family, but
Like your parents?
I have family right now. So.
Yeah, well, so I was going to say, yeah, if you actually are married or have children, the answer will be completely different. But if you don't have anyone who depends on you for income, you do not need life insurance. All right? So your parents, depending on the situation, let's say, you know, if you're going out there and you're sending back to them $1,000 a month, then yeah, you probably do need life insurance. But if no one is depending on you, you don't need life insurance, right? Except maybe a small amount to cover, you know, burying you or something. But in any case, your employer probably will provide you $50,000 worth of life insurance because they can provide that as a benefit, and no one has to pay taxes on it. So it's a kind of an IRS thing. Disability, really important. Disability is if you get sick or unable to work, you get money. So in that case, you can't work anymore. You can actually use the money, right? And so that's probably a lot more important than life insurance for you if you don't have any dependents. Health insurance is usually provided by your employer. That's great. And umbrella insurance. Umbrella insurance is on top of your renter's insurance or homeowner's insurance or your auto insurance. So you have your auto insurance, right? And that covers you up to a certain amount. If you hit someone, something like that. You've got your renters / homeowners. Both of these have certain limits. An umbrella policy, let's see, can I do an umbrella? That's an umbrella. Covers you on top of this. So it increases basically these limits. To the extent that your homeowners runs out, your umbrella will kick in. Often you'd have, let's say, $1 million here. When your auto runs out, this kicks in. And it covers you for other things as well, like libel and slander, false imprisonment. If you are coaching someone on a Little League team, let's say, and you get sued, the umbrella policy will protect you. If you are acting on a board of directors of a nonprofit, umbrella will cover you, and so on. It's very unlikely that you'll need it, but if you need it, you need it. How much do you want to have? Enough so that the insurance company wants to put up a vigorous defense for you. Okay? That's what you want. You want them paying for a good lawyer to try and protect you. You have a question?
So does this insurance require you to have these other insurances?
It does require you to have both these insurances, and it also requires you to have a high coverage here, usually the maximum. Like, okay. This is relatively cheap, like $500 a year, let's say. And you may say to yourself, but I don't have anything. Okay? I just started working. I have not yet saved a penny. Am I not judgment proof? And the answer is no. You run over, accidentally, of course, a surgeon, right? And they have a lot of future value in their life that they're going to want to sue you for. And you say, but you don't have any money. But you know what you have? You have this great job, and I can get a judgment against you and just take money out of your paycheck, right? So you are a good target for being sued. So consider umbrella insurance. It's relatively cheap. And at least now you've heard of the idea, because many people have never heard of this. Cash reserves. I highly recommend maintain 3 to 6 months of expenses. Not in an investment account. Not in a credit card line of credit. Not in a home equity line of credit. In some actual savings of some sort. Not under your bed. It can be, in a CD or in a savings account, but not in the market. Not in stocks. Because this is not an investment, this is insurance of some sort. Why not good enough to rely on, let's say, your credit cards or a home equity line of credit? Financial crisis, 2008. You know what happened? They canceled credit cards and they cut off lines of credit. So people might have a $100,000 line of credit against their equity in their house, but they hadn't pulled it out yet. They knew they always had it available, except the banks cut it off at exactly the time people needed it. Okay. But they don't take away your savings accounts, your CDs, your money markets, and so on. Does that make sense? And investments is a really bad time. If you had the money in investments in, Apple Computer or something, during the crash, when everything's dropped in value by 50%, is exactly the time you do not want to pull it out. But if you lose a job, or you have, what are some things that you might want to have cash reserves for? Losing a job is a good example. You have an opportunity to, there's a car for sale, okay? Someone has this great deal on a, not new car, because you're never going to buy a new car, but they have a really good deal on this car that is, $5,000 undervalued. But they need cash today for it, or tomorrow. So you go get it from your bank, and you pay them cash the next day, and you've got this thing, and maybe you resell it, or whatever you do with it. But you've got maybe an investment opportunity for that. Or you get sick, have to be off work. There are all sorts of situations where you really need money. All right, taxes. We don't like taxes, often. Okay? That just is a general feeling people have. So I want to show how you can put away almost $67,000 a year in a tax-advantaged account. How many people are familiar with IRAs? 401ks? Roth IRAs. All right, we'll talk about these things. HSAs. Okay, so 401k. You go to work for a company. They allow you to put away a certain amount of money each year from your paycheck before taxes. That is, you are not going to pay taxes on it now. You'll pay taxes down the road. Taxes down the road is almost always better than taxes now. You can put up to $19,500 a year as of next year. That sounds like a lot, possibly. Then there's often a company match. How much might a company match be?
Up to 50%.
Okay, so 50%, clearly we're in tech, because in the real world no one does 50%, but in tech they do.
4%.
Right? So 4% is in the real world. It's like 4%, so they would put an additional like $800 in for you, okay? But in the tech world, 50% is pretty common. So you put in, let's call it 20,000, they'll put in 10,000 for you, okay? How can you beat that, right? A 50% return right away. So you want to get all of that company match you can get, for sure, for sure, for sure. Now it turns out that the IRS sets one limit, which is this 19.5 that you can put in pre-tax. And there's another limit, which is $57,000. That's the total amount that can be put in by you and by your company. So you could certainly propose to your company, why don't we not do a 50% match? Why don't we do guys, how about at least 150% match, right? I put in 20, you put in 30. We still have a little left over. Make it 100 and whatever the number is so that we can use it. Unlikely you're going to get that to fly. Unless you work for yourself. But if you work for yourself, you can put away a full $57,000 a year. However, what you can do at almost all companies, assuming they set up their 401k right, is you can put in some money after tax. So you can say, I'm going to put in $20,000 before tax. My company's going to match and give me 10. I have $27,000 left in this range, and I can put that in after tax. Okay, so I have to pay taxes on it, but it goes into a 401k. And then I'm going to just say there is a back door that allows you to convert that to a Roth IRA. It does require certain setup by the company 401k. I know Google had that set up because they got engineers who are just thinking about this stuff and want to make sure that we have all the right settings to get all the right entitlements. So basically, you can put $57,000 away per year with your 401k. Plus, you can do a Roth IRA. Except you're going to make too much money for that because there are contribution limits. How much you can earn a year to put in a Roth IRA. But there's a back door. It's called a backdoor Roth IRA. There are not limits on converting into a Roth IRA from another IRA. So I know it sounds crazy, but you make too much money to put $6,000 in a Roth IRA. But you don't make too much to put it in a regular IRA and then convert it, which is effectively putting $6,000 in a Roth IRA. Okay? So this is, if you look out back at a Roth IRA, there are you'll find a lot about this. So it's relatively common. This one I'm going to call what is often called a mega backdoor Roth IRA. Very much not as well known. So that's this one up here. Okay. Plus an HSA. And I'm going to show you some pictures why an HSA is your best vehicle for saving money, at least for retirement. Where you can put in at the $35.50 a year. So basically you have a health, this works in conjunction with health insurance. So you have health insurance that has a high deductible. The idea is if you have a high deductible on your health insurance, you are inclined to shop around and spend less money than you otherwise would. Because the insurance company says basically you pay the first X number of dollars, let's say $4,000 a year of health expenses, and we'll kick in after that. Well, if you're going to spend the first $4,000, you're going to spend that pretty carefully. And so therefore, the theory is that it's all very good. In conjunction, for being willing to have this high deductible health insurance, the IRS also gives you this health savings account to go along with it. So you can put money in there. We'll talk about that in a moment. This, a lot of money, take advantage of it. Okay? Yes?
Is it possible to negotiate for a lower salary but like a higher company match for the 401k?
Unless you were in a tiny company, almost certainly no. And the thing is, they have to set up the match for everyone. They can't do a one-off for you. Yeah.
Your money in your 401k, is it invested for you by the company, or do you decide where it's invested?
So that was a good question. Is it invested before you get to decide? You get to make some decisions. Often you have like 5 or 6 or 10 different things you might choose from. Several mutual funds. In not very good companies, those are mutual funds that have high expenses. In better companies, they give you good mutual funds. And in really good companies, they say you can do it self-directed. So you basically get a brokerage account at, let's say, Charles Schwab, and you invest it how you want. Okay? So, like I was invested in, when I was at Google, I invested in Berkshire Hathaway. Does that make sense? And it's your money. When you leave the company, it's yours. The company match may take time to vest, so you may not be entitled to that immediately. It may take a year or two to vest until it's yours. But once it's vested, it is your money, and when you leave the company, you can take it with you. Okay, here are my fancy pictures with thumbs up and thumbs down. So, a pre-tax IRA, let's say it's showing a traditional IRA or 401k. The green with a thumbs up is no taxes. So no taxes on the money put in. Eventually you have to pay taxes. You pay them on the way out. All right? So you put money in over years, and then when you start taking it out, you're paying taxes on it. But it's growing, tax deferred. I'm going to skip this one for a moment. A Roth IRA is exactly backwards. Roth IRA or Roth 401k. You pay taxes beforehand, and then when you're taking it out, you don't pay taxes on either the original contributions or any of the earnings. So that's kind of cool. That one make sense? HSA is the best of all possible worlds. You put money in, and you don't pay taxes. You take it out for medical expenses, and you don't pay taxes. No taxes, ever. Okay? People make a lot of mistakes with HSAs. The mistake people make is they put $3,000 in at the beginning of the year, and often your company will put that in for you. And then they use that during the year to pay medical expenses. No, 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 no. This is such a cool account. You do not want to spend money on your medical expenses for it now. You instead, let's see, do I have my picture? No, I don't have a picture. I will just tell you. If we ran the numbers, it would be better to just pay your medical expenses out of pocket. Put your $3,000 in here. Pay your medical expenses out of pocket. Let this grow and grow and grow and grow. Oh, sorry. Save your receipts. Okay? Let it grow and grow and grow and grow. And you can always come back and grab those receipts and pull the money out whenever you want. So I have receipts from 5 years ago when I paid some medical expenses. I can pull that out of my HSA now. But in the meantime, it's grown tax-free. So it is the best retirement account that exists. Yes?
Can you do HSAs with like an investment account?
Yep. Yep. Fidelity is a good administrator, for example. They have low cost.
What are the conditions for like opening one? Like, can anybody do it?
You have to have the insurance. You have to have this high deductible insurance that goes along with it. Okay. Once you no longer have that insurance, you can't make any more contributions, but you can still keep the HSA. That's a situation I'm in, for example. So I've got an HSA from previous years where I had that kind of an insurance. And I no longer do. But it's still just kind of chugging along, growing and growing and growing and growing. Worst case, you get to be, ancient, like 59 and a half or something, and then you can pull the money out for whatever you want. You have to pay taxes if it's not for medical expenses, though.
So I would ask, you can pull out, you would show them how much your bill was previously, and you can pull out that amount whenever later.
It is actually more like you can pull it out. So you have to just save your receipts to show the IRS. This will happen. So you just save them. When you pull money out, you're not anywhere actually saying what your receipts were. It's just if you ever get audited, you have to show it. So, okay. So the very best account. So, and then this is the one where I talked about kind of the $17,000, so the extra money you could put in after you put in your money of $19,500 and the company match. You put it in post-tax. So you pay taxes up front, and then that money you don't have to pay taxes on again, but all your earnings you do. So this looks a lot more like just a regular old savings account. You have a savings account. When you put money in, it's after tax. You already paid taxes on it. When you withdraw the money from your savings account, you don't have to pay taxes, but any earnings you got, you did. So the only thing this really does is defer it, the taxes, till you pull it out. But the key thing is you can convert one of these into one of these. You can convert one, so this red turns into green. So that's a good thing. How do you get money out? Let's say you save all this money in your 401k, and now you decide, I am financially independent, I want to actually use some of that money. Well, if you're not old enough, you have to pay a penalty because it's intended for retirement. So if you're not 59 and a half, there are a few ways you can get out without penalty. You still always can take it out as long as you're willing to pay a 10% penalty plus pay taxes. But you can get it out for medical expenses, assuming you had a really expensive year. College expenses, even if you paid for it from a 529, which is weird. First-time home buyer, sounds great, right? Because you're all going to be first-time home buyers. But the maximum is $10,000 once in your lifetime. So you can buy like a quarter of a down payment on a little tiny house in the middle of the desert. Substantially equal periodic payments. That is, you sort of set up a plan where you're going to take the money out over your lifetime. Okay? If you do that, you don't have to pay a penalty because you're sort of treating it like an annuity or a pension. Or if you convert to a Roth IRA. So I want to just talk about those ideas. Just think of it like a mortgage, right? If you have a mortgage where you owe $400,000 and over 30 years, and there's a certain interest rate, that's so much per month, same idea. You take your balance, you take whatever the current federal interest rate is, you take your lifespan according to a life insurance table, mix it in, you come out with a monthly amount. It'll just be the same for the next, your lifespan is probably 50 years or more. So over the next 50 years. Mine is less than that, I know. Or, I need to show you this idea, because this is not very well known. This one, relatively well known. This one, not very well known. So here's the idea. You have this giant pre-tax IRA, okay? If you had a 401k, you can always convert it to an IRA. So you've got this IRA. You can convert money in your IRA to a Roth IRA. So let's say you take out $50,000. XX here. You have to pay taxes. So you have to pay taxes on $50,000. Okay, so you pay whatever it is, your 30%, and you put the $50,000 in here. And then next year, you do it again, and you do it again, and you do it again. Okay? So far, this is not very fun. Like, how am I getting money out? All I've been doing is paying taxes, right? But year 6, after 5 years of a conversion, you can take the money out. So that XX you put in year 1, you can take out in year 6. So XX comes out tax-free. And then you put in another chunk, you convert, that's going to help you out 5 years from now. So every year, you are converting money that you're going to then take out 5 years later. And then the next year, you're going to convert money that you're going to take out 5 years later, and so on, and so on. So this is a way you can get money out of your IRA. You just have to wait 5 years. Convert it, wait 5 years. But if you set up a system, and you have enough money to live on money outside of your Roth IRA, or your IRAs for the first 5 years, then you've got a system going where you can just continually go and go and go. I don't expect you to understand the intricacies of all of this. It's more just a general overview of providing you the idea of it. I want to show you this interesting TurboTax setup I did. Let's say you earn $25,000 in dividends, so you own some stock outside of any 401k IRA. You get $25,000 there. You get, let's see, an IRA conversion. So you're going to convert $24,000 from a regular IRA to a Roth IRA. You have $52,000 in capital gains, right? That is, you had some stock, it went up in price, you sold it. Or you had a house, you went up in price, you sold it. How much do you have to pay on this $101,000 of income? Absolutely no federal tax. Right? So I said back here you're having to pay taxes on this, but it may be zero amount of taxes, which is not a bad deal. Right? So you didn't ever pay it putting it in, and now you're not paying it as you're putting it in your Roth, And as you take it out of your Roth, you're not paying any either. So this is money you will have never paid income tax on, assuming you get to the situation where you're. There is one caveat. You have to get married for these numbers. So sorry about that. But the tax system penalizes regular old wage earners. And it actually acts pretty nicely to people who have assets that they are either selling for capital gains or getting dividends from, as you can see from these numbers. Okay. The HSA account, yes, as I said, just save your receipts, let it grow, withdraw the money later. Never pay taxes in or out. Many of you are going to probably work at large companies where you get stock. Okay? Like if you go to work for Microsoft or Google or something like that, they're going to probably give you stock that vests over 4 years. So after a year, you might get a quarter of it, let's say, and then a year from then, you might get another quarter, or it might start going out monthly or quarterly or something like that. And here's the question. What do they want you to do with it? The company. Yeah, they want you to hold on to it. They want you to be like owners in the business and feel like you're connected and work even harder than you're working. My claim, so you get a month and you get some pay and some vested stock. Okay? As far as the IRS is concerned, you got X plus Y amount of pay and you're going to pay your income tax on that X plus Y amount of pay. So from their point of view, it's as if you got X plus Y cash and chose to buy company stock with that Y amount of money. Is Y amount, so let's say you want to hold company stock. Is Y the exact amount you want? It just happens to be what they gave you in this combination of cash and stock. But you could always adjust the cash and stock, right? If you wanted more cash and less stock, what would you do? Sell some stock. And if you wanted more stock and less cash, buy some stock. But don't just sit with whatever they happen to give you because that's what they happen to give it to you. Okay? And my claim is the amount of company stock you want is a 0. Because you're already heavily invested in the company. Like that's where your job is, right? If they tank and you lose your job, you don't really want to lose your stock as well. Not selling your stock is exactly the same as choosing to buy it. That's kind of the key takeaway here. Passively just deciding, I got it and I'm not going to sell it, is exactly as if you had the cash and were deciding to buy it. Okay? And in fact, sometimes there are cases where you've had stock a long time, and if you sold it, you'd have to pay taxes. But this is not the case. The same day you get it, you can sell it. And most companies have auto sale programs where it'll just automatically sell for you. That's what you want to do. Just have it sell. You're already dependent on the company future, right? You've already probably got more stock in the future that's going to be granted to you. And it's a certain number of shares. And so if the stock price goes up, you're getting more money. Same number of shares, but more money. So you're already counting or writing or getting some value from the appreciation of the stock. So it's not clear you want more. And I don't even mostly do tech stocks just because as a sector, we're already sort of heavily invested in tech. Okay, here are some resources. Anyone heard of Mr. Money Mustache? Really entertaining guy to read. He was a tech guy himself. He preaches the virtues of bicycling around lots of places and living well on not a lot of money. Early retirement extreme goes quite extreme and says, well, you could live on $7,000 a year. So that one's too extreme for me. Mad Scientist is very interesting. Radical Personal Finance and Engineering Podcast. And this is a good book that just talks about, you want to know how to invest. This is just the simplest simple way to do it. Just, invest in an index fund. That is about the summary of that book. There's a little more to it, but it's actually pretty good. That's the financial part of it. You still got 20 minutes for the engineering part. Any last questions? All right. General stuff and some meta optimizations. General stuff. I need to show this. So, I saw, in fact, today, I saw someone in the terminal wanted to select some text. It was contiguous text. It was like they had a password type in or something. They wanted to select a password. And so went to the front of it, and then clicked the mouse down, and then dragged over, and then let go at just the right spot, and then did a copy. Okay? And my claim is that is wasteful. So if I want to select the word words, I don't go click here, and then drag, and then let go. What do? I double click, because double click selects words, right? That's been only working since 1982, okay, since the Mac came out, 84, right? If you want to do multiple words, you double click and then drag. And as you drag, since I started with a double click, it is continuing to select words. Okay? Does that one make sense? Let's say I want to do a copy now. Do I slowly go up to the edit menu and choose edit and then choose copy? No, I do Command C, right? I had someone I worked with, and it just drove me insane to be pair programming with her, because copy and paste every time was a visit to the edit menu.
No.
So, multiple lines. So many people know about double clicking for words. Many fewer people know about triple clicking for lines. So if I want to triple click, that gets the line. If I want to do multiple lines, I just go like that. If I am in a code editor, let's bring up code editor. So I've got some stuff here, let's say, and I want to move some stuff around. The way I move it is I triple click, I cut, I move to where I want to put it at the beginning of the line, and I paste. I so often see people who select, let's say, like this. Okay, this is what I want. These are my lines. I'm going to cut it. And then I go to where I want, and I paste. And then they go fix all the spacing, right? Where they have extra space on one and an empty line and all this stuff. So that is not the way you copy lines. You copy lines by cut it, go to the beginning of the line you want to paste it, and you're done. All right? Here's a bonus, actually. Let me give you that one, because I see that one too often as well. Which is, let's say I'm in here. Okay? I really don't want to be at my password manager. I want to go someplace else. I want to go to NewYorkTimes.com. I do not hit delete. Okay? I mean, if I do, that'll work, and then I can type NewYorkTimes.com. However, I can also just select it, and again, for 25 years, 35 years, if you have a selection and you start typing, the typing replaces the selection. So if you have something selected, just start typing, and it will replace it. These are simple things, but we spend so much time on our computers, right? Most people in the world do. We spend a lot more. Might as well get really good at it. All right. In the terminal, normally bash is what we run. You can run commands in the background. All right? So you want to run something, and you don't want to wait for it to finish. You put an ampersand after it, and it will give you back a command line prompt. It'll be going to do its thing, and you can continue running. How many of you knew that? Very few. All right. It's really handy. Let's say I start running something, and I realize, I don't put the ampersand, and then I realize, oh shit, this is training a neural network. It's going to take a long time. I wish I'd put an ampersand. But now you're stuck, right? No. We have got let's see. What do I want to do that takes a long time? What's that?
Ping on SSH.
Ping is a great one. So we ping foo.com. That's weird because there is a foo.com. But anyway, it's running. Oh, gee, I wish I'd ran in the background. Control Z. Control Z stops the currently running program. I can see my programs. Notice it stopped, it's not running. And I can put it in the background. And now it's in the background. Or I can bring it back to the foreground. And now it's in the foreground. I use this all the time when I'm editing and compiling. Okay? When I'm editing and compiling, so this is my file, I'm working on it. I do not quit the program. I write it, and I Control Z. And now it's still there, so I can come back, because I know I'm going to be editing this program in another 3 seconds, because my compile is going to fail, especially with that code in it, right? So I do my, make, whatever, and then I come back in the foreground. I make some more changes. I write again. I do Control Z. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Does that make sense? It's often the case in the command line that you're moving between directories. Or sometimes you're moving back and forth between two directories. It's a pain in the ass, especially if it's kind of far away or long typing to move back and forth. So I want to show you a couple tricks. One, just the simplest thing. Minus is the last directory you were in before this one. Okay? So I'm in my home directory, and I change directories to /temp, and then I cd minus, I'm back in my home directory. I cd minus again, I'm back in /temp. Then there is actually a stack of directories that you can use. So when you are changing directories, instead of using cd to change directories, use pushd. Pushd will go to that new directory, but will save the old directory as part of the stack. And to go back, you can choose popd. Or if you just want to swap the two current top directories, just pushd, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So I try rarely to use cd to go places and use pushd instead, so that I can get back to where I was. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Could you just alias pushd as cd and then not have to worry about it?
You could. Sometimes though, I like in working my way down a directory hierarchy, like cd into source, cd into Python, until I get to where I really want to go, and I didn't really want those things in the meantime. So it's only at the first step I take, I would do a pushd, and sometimes I just don't remember and get in trouble. But yeah, you could. All right, I got to show you this stuff. So, how do you guys rerun the last command in the terminal?
Up arrow.
Up arrow. Agreed. Up arrow works. That's good. How do you run the one, two before? You do 2 up arrows, right? And K before, you do K up arrows, right? Well, it turns out there's a whole history of commands that you've run, which, depending on how you set things, actually include before you logged in. So saved across logins. So history 20 shows the last 20 commands. Bang, bang, right? Exclamation, exclamation, runs the last command. It turns out this is going to be important besides the up arrow, because we can do modifications of this. This is what I use all the time. No, not this one. So you can do command number. Bang 35 is command number 35. If I look in my history, let's see. All right, so I have 41,000 entries in mine, which is why I type history 20 and not history. Because if I type history, it will give me everything from 1 to 42,000, and it takes a while. But here's what I can do. So I can do, for instance, bang 411. I never do this, but 41188, right? I can do that, and that'll do a clear, which clears my screen. But the other thing I could do is I can do, let's say, bang M. That is the last command that started with an M. So if I am switching between compiling and making, I'm Control-Z, bang in, foreground. Control-Z, bang in, foreground, and so on until eventually I get it right. For make, it's not so bad because it's only 4 characters to type, right? M-A-K-E. But in a lot of cases, you had some complicated command line that you're using to run a particular, MySQL script, or some long options you had to provide to some compiler command or something else. And so nice to just be able to do bang whatever to do it. And it becomes really second nature. The other thing you can do that's very common is bang question mark, like the last command that had blah in it. So I might have many things that started with an M, but only one that had a ake in it for make. So, you had a question, Santi?
Yeah, no, I have another recommendation. I have, I think it's ampersand. So if you have like a compile, then connect to a server, then run, then you can ampersand
Yeah,
them.
that's-
and then that's like super useful because instead of doing like up, enter, up, enter, up, enter.
That's a good point. Yeah, you could do this, and if it succeeds, run this, and if it succeeds, run this. There's a lot to learn about the shell, and you should. I find it very common to want to run the last command. Like, let's say I had the last command, and I mistyped something. It's like 80 characters long, and I put an X instead of an F. Damn it. I could go up arrow, and then left arrow, and go all the way over to my X, and then hit delete, and then put in an F, and then hit return. Or I could do up arrow X, up arrow F. Saying basically substitute the X for an F. Or, and this takes some getting used to, replace all bars with foo on the last line. Okay? So not uncommon if I'm not even going to try and come up with examples for that one. I want to see the last command that started with foo, but I don't want to run it. I just want to print it. So that's the :P. I want the last parameter of the last command. Not uncommon. You want to edit a file, and then compile the file, and then maybe copy the file. And so this bang ampersand allows you to do that. So I could say like vim foo.c, and then Control-Z, and then compile bang ampersand, and then maybe copy bang ampersand to another directory, something like that. If you want to be going up and doing an up arrow and then changing the X to an F, kind of visually, don't do it with the arrow keys. Use Vim mode. So Vim mode allows you to use the Vim, a lot of the Vim commands from the command line. Okay? We're going to talk about Vim in a moment and why you need to know so much of it. So if all you know about Vim is the arrow keys, this doesn't do you much good, but you need to know a lot more about Vim than that. Anyway, you could just go edit stuff, hit return, and execute it. Escape takes you in and out of the Vim mode, this editing mode. So when you're out of the editing mode, you can just type. But you're in editing mode, you can use all your Vim commands to move around and to insert and to do all that stuff. Master your text editor. So how many Emacs users here? Maybe? How many Emacs users here? All right, so Emacs is not just a text editor, right? It is a way of life. So master your text editor, whatever it is. But Vim is probably a good one. It is very powerful. You can easily train your fingers to do a whole heck of a lot of things. But you have to train them. I thought I had. So Vim Tutor. Is a program you can run from the command line, and it will learn you through Vim. Okay. What you've got to do though is learn a few things, like it gives you a few commands, and then start just trying to use those. Because if you don't actually try and use them, that'll never become part of your, neural firmware. I used Vim back in the 80s, And then I was doing Mac programming for a long time, before it was based on Unix and there was no Vim for 15 years or something. So I just didn't use it, and then I came back, and it's like my fingers, I mean, they just still knew it. It was like riding a bicycle, really. It was amazing. So. I've got about 5 minutes. I'm going to just say there's a thing called Screen. How many of you log into Knuth on a regular basis? How many of you have a long-running program, like a big compile or something else, and have you ever lost your connection and the compile died? Wouldn't it be cool if you could just sort of reconnect and it was still there? That's what Screen does. So by default, when you run programs connected to terminal, when you lose your terminal connection, they die. However, if you run in a Screen section, they're still there. So I log on to Knuth all the time because I've got to update the web page. Is mostly what I'm doing. So let's see. So here's what I do. I log into Knuth. By the way, you should never be typing your username or password when you're using SSH, right? Instead, you should be using keys, SSH keys. Okay? If you're pulling stuff from GitHub, you should never be typing your username and password. You should be setting up SSH keys. Okay? Again, an idea making your life easier. So here I am. Here's what I do. I want to return to where I was. So I say screen minus resume. And let's just not even think about that. It's already attached somewhere. I say detach it from where you were. I want it here. And now I'm back where I was. I actually have two windows. This is one window, and this is my main window. I'm switching back and forth between these with Control-A-N. So here's my main window. And I ran make. And I have a job running, which is editing the schedule. So I go in here and I make changes to the schedule and I write it and I Control-Z and I say make. This Vim of running the schedule has been running since the last time we lost power, several weeks ago. Okay? So I have all my context. I have my program still running. They're just there. Screen is awesome. Plus, it gives you multiple screens above and beyond this. But in general, if you're connecting to a remote system, it's invaluable. You can connect from your laptop, or you can connect from any machine, right? When you SSH in, you can just resume where you were. So the first time you run screen, you just run screen, and it gives you a little bit of information, and then you've got one window. What you really need to know is Control-A question mark will give you help about what keys you can use. You can create these multiple windows, close windows, but most importantly, when you hang up, when you lose the session, it's still there. Okay. Meta optimizations. Learn your tools. There's Vim Tutor. So if you're using Eclipse, be a pro at Eclipse. If you're using Bash, be a pro at Bash. You're going to be using this all the time. I never thought learning shell scripting, learning Vim, that it would still be useful 35 years later, right? It's actually perhaps a sad thing about programming tools, but it is true. Your performance curve when you're learning. You get worse. I know, but you'll get better. My first job after freshman in college was like typing for the phone company. Okay, so you had to type these, reports, and so I did type a lot of numbers, and I didn't know how to touch type numbers. So what I did was the first week I said, I'm going to be typing a lot of numbers. I mentally know where the numbers are. It's not that hard to. I am not going to look. So that first week I was like, 1328. See, 1, that's on my little pinky finger. Okay, 1. 13, that's on my middle finger. 3, and the 2's next to that, and the 8. You have middle? You have my middle finger. Okay? People who are watching thought, wow, we really did not get our money worth on this guy. But by the next week, I didn't have to look. I knew my numbers. They're there. Okay? So you can learn anything. It's an investment. You have a long time to pay back. Learn stuff. The last thing, you wanted to do a lot of work in your lifetime. There's work per keystroke, and there's keystrokes in your lifetime. So you want to improve both of those. To improve the work done per keystroke, become a master of your tools. So you type less. And keystrokes in your lifetime, what can you do? Well, that's keystrokes per minute and minutes per lifetime. You can address both of those. Keystrokes per minute, minutes per lifetime, live longer, right? So, get plenty of sleep and exercise. Keystrokes per minute, type faster. If you do not touch type, that is, if you do not both not look at the keyboard and use all your fingers, let's say even the way you're supposed to, then you need to learn to touch type. And all you need to do is put this chart up and just don't look. Just promise you will not look at your fingers and you will learn to touch type if you do not already. Okay, I was impressed with some of you I was seeing in the cafe the other day because you were just typing right away. It's like good. But I am surprised by the number of people I see who are professional engineers who spend a lot of time typing who either hunt and peck or it's just crazy. So that is it. Thanks so much for the semester.
Thank you.